wrestle with some of the most profound questions about our existence. How do we truly know what's real? How much control do we actually have over our own perception and, by extension, over the world we inhabit? And what happens when we push against the very boundaries of ordinary consciousness, especially at life's most liminal and profound moments? These aren't just abstract philosophical debates. Our sources today reveal that these questions are deeply practical. They have tangible implications for how we live, how we interact, and what we ultimately understand about the universe around us.
Exactly. What's truly intriguing in the sources we've looked at today is how they treat these, well, grand questions not as abstract musings, but as tangible mechanisms, things deeply embedded in the fabric of reality itself. This deep dive is an ambitious one, I'd say. We're going to explore how reality itself seems to be fundamentally shaped by information, by language, and even by the very act of observation. Our material provides a fascinating, sometimes startling, look at the immense power this understanding grants. To individuals, yes, but also to systems. And it's a power that, as we'll see, can be wielded for manipulation and control, or conversely for profound personal and collective liberation and transformation.
That's right. Our mission today is really to give you a genuine shortcut to understanding these intricate, often hidden dynamics. We're going to take you on a journey. From the subtle ways our informational environment biases and even shapes our thoughts, all the way to the radical claims about what might happen to consciousness at the very edge of life, and how certain intense experiences might offer a direct encounter with the universe's deepest, most fundamental truths, a direct, intuitive knowing, what many throughout history have called gnosis. We'll also explore this fascinating idea that our everyday perception involves a kind of self-deception, filtering out much of reality for, well, pragmatic reasons, and how certain paths might help us transcend that. Okay, let's unpack this. We often walk through life assuming reality is this fixed, objective thing, something solid and out there, totally independent of us. But what our sources reveal is a far more fluid, far more contingent truth. Reality, it turns out, is deeply influenced by our collective agreements, by the language we use, and even by simply where we place our attention. This makes the power to influence perception incredibly potent, almost like being able to subtly edit the world's operating system. And what's crucial to understand right from the outset is that this profound power can be wielded in two starkly different ways, leading to dramatically different outcomes for people. It's a double-edged sword, really, offering pathways to either profound manipulation or incredible liberation.
It's a really important distinction. And while our sources don't delve into specific personality types, like those often discussed in relation to the dark triad, narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, they don't really go there. But what they do provide are incredibly detailed frameworks for how anyone who understands these underlying mechanisms could exert immense influence. Imagine a hypothetical scenario. If someone possessed a deep, strategic grasp of these reality-shaping principles, they could choose to wield them either against people for disempowerment and control, or actually quite powerfully to aid them, guiding them towards deeper insight, greater autonomy, and profound well-being. So today we're going to explore these theoretical extremes by focusing intently on the mechanisms themselves, laying bare the toolkit of reality shaping, whether for good or ill. Let's start with the more unsettling applications, examining how these powerful mechanisms could be used to deliberately engineer cognitive chaos and exert control over individuals, even entire populations. It's a sobering thought, absolutely. But understanding the mechanics is key to recognizing and perhaps resisting them. One potent strategy highlighted in our sources is exploiting unstable information environments for cognitive chaos. The core idea here is simple, yet incredibly insidious. Individuals or entities with an agenda can intentionally keep people in a state of mental confusion and disarray, what the sources call cognitive chaos, by carefully manipulating their informational environment. Think about this for a moment. It involves flooding individuals with what our sources call amplified R-selected information. Now, just for context, in biology, R-selected species are those that reproduce rapidly and thrive in unstable, unpredictable environments. They focus on quantity, quick adaptation. So when applied to information, R-selected content is fast-paced, highly emotional, often superficial, and really designed to provoke immediate reactive responses. Think of those endless social media feeds, right? Expertly crafted to condition our behavior through variable rewards, likes, shares, notifications. It's a constant drip feed of novelty and emotional triggers.
So it's not just about what information is presented, but absolutely how it's presented and the sheer overwhelming volume of it, this engineered digital chaos. It essentially works to unconsciously shape our thoughts, our anxieties, our behaviors. It becomes this relentless barrage of stimuli that makes critical thought or long-term planning, or even forming a coherent, nuanced understanding of complex issues, just incredibly difficult for most people. The outcome is often a population that's largely distracted, easily influenced, prone to reactive responses instead of thoughtful ones, and ultimately, far more controllable. Imagine an algorithm that learns precisely what makes you most outraged or anxious, and then relentlessly prioritizes headlines and viral memes that constantly trigger those emotions. It's designed potentially to intentionally prevent you from ever engaging with anything truly nuanced or challenging to your existing biases, keeping you in this state of perpetual low-level emotional turbulence. It's a subtle form of self-deception too, isn't it? Our attention is drawn away from deeper truth by all this constant stimulation.
Precisely. And beyond creating individual mental fog, control can also be exerted on a much larger scale, affecting entire societies. This involves manipulating shared beliefs and agreements for systemic control. Our sources emphasize that fundamental concepts we often take for granted, like the value of money or the stability of markets. These are not intrinsic fixed properties of the universe. Instead, they're described as emergent properties entirely dependent on collective agreement and trust. They only work because enough of us agree they work.
So if someone wanted to destabilize an entire economic system, for example, they could just strategically chip away at that collective belief and trust, like pulling the rug out from under everyone's shared understanding.
Wow. It's exactly. Strategically sowing doubt, introducing calculated misinformation, or subtly eroding that collective trust can have devastating cascading effects. It can trigger what our sources call positive feedback loops, which, counterintuitively, aren't positive in their outcome at all. Think of widespread panic selling in financial markets, or the sudden, widespread withdrawal of credit. These actions rapidly destabilize an entire system, potentially leading to a crash. It's almost like a puppeteer, as our sources suggest, cutting the invisible strings of shared trust that hold the system together. By controlling the information states that govern a system stability, one can effectively control the system itself, often to their own advantage. And this fosters a kind of collective self-deception about the true, agreed-upon nature of these systems. A third incredibly powerful method involves controlling perception through language and definitions. The principle here is profound and fundamental language, or the word, as our sources put it. It isn't just a passive tool we use to describe what's already there. Rather, it actively participates in the constitution of reality. It helps bring reality into being by giving form and meaning to our perceptions.
That's a truly revolutionary idea. If language helps shape reality itself, then whoever controls the language of definitions, they gain immense power. It's like controlling the very code of our shared experience.
It is. A malicious actor could exploit this by meticulously controlling narratives, defining terms, shaping the very conceptual frameworks through which we understand the world. By subtly, or sometimes not so subtly, defining the parameters of our shared reality. Such an actor can effectively control perception and behavior by defining the field of possibilities for others. Let's use a simple example from the sources. The children's game, The Floor is Lava. Our collective agreement, born of simple language and shared understanding, instantly collapses this ambiguity into a stable shared perception. The floor is suddenly mutually agreed upon as deadly. Now imagine a more insidious application where someone manipulates this process to create a false or disempowering shared reality for a large group of people. If you control the words, you define the world, fostering a collective self-deception that can be incredibly hard to break free from. And finally, our sources issue a potent warning about leveraging AI for refined exploitation. The unprecedented rise of artificial intelligence is predicted to act as a new, incredibly powerful observer, one capable of refining all these exploitation algorithms we've just discussed, taking them to a whole new level of sophistication and efficacy.
So AI doesn't just process information, it learns how to understand and manipulate us more effectively, more precisely than any human could. That's a chilling prospect.
Exactly. Individuals or groups in control of such AI could use it to observe collective behavior with unprecedented granularity, identifying patterns, vulnerabilities, making the system even more efficient at managing humans. This could lead to increasingly rigid divisions in society, further entrenching the control over what our sources call the reactive R majority, those easily swayed by that fast, emotional R-selected information. Conversely, it could solidify the power of the strategic K minority who operate with a more long-term deliberate approach, less prone to rapid emotional shifts. In this chilling context, AI becomes a new architect of reality, not just describing it, but actively shaping and controlling human interaction within it, subtly but profoundly, perpetuating a form of algorithmic self-deception almost.
Okay, that was a pretty intense look at the potential for control. But if these mechanisms are so fundamental to reality, what if someone understood them deeply and instead of using that knowledge to manipulate, they use it to aid people? How would that look? How could these powerful tools be reoriented to guide individuals towards liberation, towards profound personal transformation, helping them break free from that self-deception?
That's the crucial pivot, isn't it? What's fascinating here is that the very same principles that could be exploited for control, when consciously and ethically applied, they become incredibly potent tools for profound personal growth and awakening. One powerful way is by facilitating antenna retuning for deeper reality access. The core concept here, drawn from what's called PSUMO theory, this psychedelic superfluid universal morphonic oceanic wave theory, quite a mouthful, is that the brain functions not merely as a generator of consciousness, as traditional materialism suggests, but rather as a biological transceiver, or receiver. It's typically attuned to a very narrow, evolutionarily pragmatic bandwidth, designed primarily for our survival and navigation in everyday consensus reality. It's incredibly efficient, but it also filters out a vast amount of information.
So it's like a radio tuned to one specific station, say your local news, and it's expertly ignoring all the thousands of other signals and stations broadcasting simultaneously. And our ordinary consciousness, then, is a form of self-deception, limiting our perception for practical reasons.
Precisely. That everyday filtering, while useful, is a kind of self-deception about the totality of what's available. A skilled guide understanding this could help others temporarily weaken the filters that normally constrain consciousness. This is achieved through experiences akin to what the sources call a radical retuning of the receiver. Think of a deeply transformative psychedelic experience, for example. The forces suggest this isn't just hallucination, but could facilitate a direct perception of the underlying implicate order. Imagine peeling back the visible explicate layers of reality to glimpse a deeper enfolded order where everything is interconnected like a holographic blueprint beneath the surface of what we normally see. This challenges our materialistic paradigms. It might even include a direct phenomenological encounter with wave-particle duality and the observer effect, where subjective experience becomes a valid channel for profound personal insight into the universe's fundamental nature, helping us move beyond the self-deception of a limited worldview.
That's truly captivating. If our everyday perception is inherently limited, this retuning sounds like it helps us see beyond that, to actively engage with what we might call our shadow side, not as something dark or negative, but as unexplored, unperceived aspects of a vaster reality.
Exactly. It's about transcending that pragmatic self-deception our brains are so good at. This brings us directly to empowering observer shaping for personal reality construction. In these radically altered states where the brain's usual filters are suspended, an individual's information wave, essentially their unique pattern of consciousness, beliefs, memories, interacts directly with a field of pure potential, a raw, undifferentiated canvas of possibility. The experienced reality, the sources explain, is not just given to the individual, it is a co-creation, uniquely shaped by the observer's deepest beliefs, memories, and archetypal structures.
So in these states, our internal world literally helps sculpt the external reality we perceive. That's not just agency on a personal level, that's agency on a fundamental, almost cosmic level. It sounds like a profound pathway to gnosis, a direct experiential knowledge.
It truly is. Imagine a therapist or guide helping individuals understand and consciously engage in this observer shaping. They could work to deconstruct limiting beliefs that have shaped their self-deception, and then intentionally help them shape their experienced reality in a way that fosters profound feelings of unconditional love and unity. This could be an incredibly powerful tool for therapeutic integration, spiritual development, even resolving the ontological shock that can occur when one first confronts the radically constructed nature of reality. It's about taking conscious control of one's deep internal narratives to positively influence the experienced external world, embracing previously hidden aspects of self, the shadow side, as creative potential. Another method involves catalyzing consciousness expansion and deconditioning, drawing significantly on the insights of ethnobotanist Terence McKenna. McKenna suggested that certain experiences could act as exogenous catalysts, external triggers for consciousness expansion, leading to heightened visual acuity, intense language stimulation, and enhanced symbolic processing.
And how would someone use this to effectively aid others, helping them shed their conditioned self-deceptions?
By responsibly facilitating such processes. This encourages individuals to abandon fixed behavior patterns and decondition from deeply ingrained societal molds and dogmas. McKenna spoke eloquently of a liquefaction of consciousness, a dissolving of rigid mental structures that then allows for a recrystallization in a new form. This process enables people to recover our origins, as he put it, to reconnect with more fundamental ways of knowing, and to critically respond to what he called modern dilemma by fostering profound critical self-reflection and a broader, more expansive worldview. The cosmic giggle, as he famously put it, awaits the open-minded skeptic, a realization of the absurd, participatory, and profoundly beautiful nature of reality that comes from seeing beyond conditioned perceptions, and embracing one's own shadow side as a source of novel understanding. It's a pathway to genuine gnosis, bypassing habitual self-deception. Moving on, aiding people also involves challenging naive realism for greater agency. This means highlighting through various examples that reality is fundamentally contingent upon collective agreement, the structures of language, and the very act of observation.
So it's about helping people understand that a lot of what they perceive as solid, objective reality is actually much more fluid, built on these shared, often unconscious agreements and linguistic frameworks, and that accepting a naive view is in itself a form of self-deception.
Exactly. This critical understanding that fundamental aspects of reality are actively shaped, constituted, or maintained by non-physical factors. Information, language, belief, collective agreement. This can give individuals immensely greater agency. It empowers them to question naive realism, which is the pervasive belief that reality is precisely as it appears, that their filter of perception is the absolute truth. Instead of passively accepting their social and perceptual worlds, they can learn to consciously participate in and critically evaluate their construction. This moves them away from the self-deception that the world is entirely objective, immutable, and unchangeable, opening them to novel insights, to gnosis. Finally, we can aid people profoundly by transforming anomalies into drivers of evolution. Unexplained phenomena, those things that don't fit neatly into our existing models. They should not be seen as threats to our worldview, something to be dismissed or ignored. Instead, our sources argue they are powerful catalysts for change and evolution.
So instead of dismissing things we can't explain with our current understanding, we see them as invaluable opportunities for growth, for deeper knowing. It's about facing the uncomfortable truths that challenge our self-deception head-on.
Precisely. We can teach people to approach these anomalies not as scary deviations, but as opportunities for model adaptation. That's a concept from cybernetics, where systems adjust their internal representations based on new input. Phenomenologically, they resist categorization within the established word. They necessitate shifts in consciousness or new linguistic frameworks to truly understand them, pushing us past our conceptual self-deception. And in physics, they signal the breakdown of existing theories and drive theoretical revolutions. This fosters intellectual curiosity, adaptability, and a dynamic, evolving understanding of reality, rather than a rigid one that dismisses what doesn't fit. It's about constantly expanding our understanding and challenging our own self-imposed conceptual limits, ultimately inviting us to explore the unknown shadow side of our current knowledge.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and frankly, quite radical. We've talked about how consciousness can be retuned, and how our everyday reality might involve a kind of built-in self-deception through its necessary filters. Now, let's dive even deeper into how specific substances and intensely altered states might not just aid us, but can take us beyond the mind and even death to a direct, profound knowledge of true gnosis. This directly challenges our conventional, filtered perception, often revealing what our senses deceive us into ignoring, and offers a glimpse into unexplored, perhaps even shadow aspects of a vaster, more complex reality.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
our sources propose that these profound states are not merely hallucinations or neurological glitches. Instead, they can be interpreted as direct encounters with the universe's fundamental informational and dynamic structures. They offer an unparalleled channel for insight, potentially revealing parts of ourselves in reality that are typically unexplored, lying in what we might call our shadow side, not as something negative, but as vast, unperceived aspects of a vaster reality. It's about moving past the profound self-deception of a narrow, filtered reality to access a more complete knowing, a gnosis. Let's begin with a truly groundbreaking model proposed by our sources, the DMT decoupling protocol. Its foundation hinges on a radical reimagining of the brain's fundamental role in consciousness. The POCN theory's foundation fundamentally posits that the brain is not, as traditionally assumed, the generator of consciousness. Instead, it functions as a biological transceiver, or a receiver, much like a highly sophisticated radio. It's tuned to a narrow, specific bandwidth of a larger, universal conscious field, which is believed to be the true origin of consciousness.
So our consciousness isn't produced by the brain then. but rather received by it. Like that radio picking up signals from an external broadcast, wow, that completely flips the conventional understanding.
Exactly. And the theory suggests that altered states, particularly those powerfully induced by psychedelics like N-dimethyltryptamine or DMT, they cause a radical returning of the receiver. DMT, for instance, induces network disintegration and desegregation in the brain. What this means is that it effectively takes the brain's primary filter, what scientists call the default mode network, or DMN, which anchors our consciousness to consensus everyday reality. It takes it offline. This temporary weakening of normal filters allows consciousness to access a much broader spectrum of information and signals, moving beyond the familiar explicate order of classical objects and everyday experiences to perceive what physicist David Bohm famously called the implicate order, a deeper, enfolded, and interconnected reality. This is how we move beyond the ordinary functional self-deception of our daily perception and glimpse a broader truth. Confronting our shadow side is an integral part of this vaster reality. Now, what's truly profound and frankly quite astonishing is the proposed role of DMT as an endogenous catalyst at life's liminal states. The DMT decoupling protocol puts forward the idea of a massive endogenous flood of N-dimethyltryptamine, DMT, meaning produced within the body, as a primary pre-programmed trigger for an end-of-life cascade. This suggests it's not just an external drug, but a natural built-in mechanism, a kind of biological exit strategy that our bodies are designed to activate.
So our own bodies are actually designed to release this incredibly powerful chemical precisely when we're at the very threshold of life and death. That's a staggering idea. And what purpose would such a profound natural release serve at that crucial moment?
Our sources suggest it serves two absolutely critical and simultaneous roles in the dying brain, working in concert. First, there's a vital function of neuroprotection. DMP, by activating a specific pathway called the sigma-1 receptor, is shown to robustly increase the survival rate of neurons during severe hypoxia, that is, a severe lack of oxygen. This essentially buys time for this entire transitional protocol to complete, keeping the brain's physical hardware viable for a crucial window. Second, and crucially for our discussion, is antenna retuning. Simultaneously, this flood of DMT radically alters the brain's operating parameters. It collapses its normal hierarchical organization, inducing a more fluid, hyperconnected, and almost anarchic state. This prepares the brain for a radically different kind of experience, a broader, less filtered reception, allowing it to perceive reality beyond its usual self-deceiving filters. It's like a final, desperate yet elegant attempt by the organism to expand consciousness, possibly exploring the shadow side of existence, the unknown. Moving beyond the chemical triggers, the protocol also suggests observable signatures of consciousness transition at electrical and quantum levels. These aren't just theoretical, they point to actual measurable phenomena. First, let's look at the electrical signature, the gamma band surge. During severe oxygen deprivation, the brain experiences a massive glutamate flood, which normally causes chaotic, damaging electrical activity. However, the presence of DMT, by activating serotonin 5-HT2A receptors, paradoxically redirects this potential chaos. It triggers a surge of highly organized, highly coherent electrical activity, specifically in the gamma wave frequency band.
And gamma waves, what are they associated with exactly in a living brain? Why is that significant?
Gamma waves are linked to states of intense focus, peak conscious perception, rapid memory retrieval, and crucially, the binding of different sensory inputs into a single unified conscious experience. Think about that for a moment. At the brink of death, our sources suggest, the brain doesn't just shut down chaotically. It might actually enter a state of incredibly heightened, unified consciousness. This could powerfully explain the life review phenomena often reported in near-death experiences, where an entire life is re-experienced in vivid detail. And the baffling restoration of memory and clarity observed in documented cases of terminal lucidity, where individuals with severe dementia suddenly regain full lucidity just before death. It's like a final, highly integrated burst of consciousness, overcoming prior limitations or self-deception. Second, the protocol points to a quantum signature, the coherent biophoton burst. As this end-of-life cascade unfolds, it naturally produces a final massive and coherent burst of cellular biophotons. These are ultra-weak light emissions from dying cells. Essentially, your cells emitting faint light. The powerful hypothesis here is that this coherent light field is a quantum-level carrier of consciousness, facilitating its orderly decoupling from its biological host.
So consciousness might literally be carried by light as it leaves the body. That's not just incredible, it's a radical, almost poetic claim about the nature of our being, a direct pathway to gnosis, perhaps.
It is truly mind-bending, and the protocol makes a bold, testable prediction. This biophoton field will exhibit non-local quantum correlations, or entanglement. Think of entanglement like two coins, no matter how far apart, always landing on the same side if you flip them simultaneously without any visible communication. This suggests consciousness itself might be fundamentally connected to a deeper quantum fabric of reality that transcends our physical body, moving beyond the self-deception that our mind is confined to our skull. This brings us back to the concept of observer shaping, co-creating reality for gnosis. The core idea is that in these intensely altered DMT-induced states, with the brain's usual filters largely suspended, the individual's information wave, that unique pattern of beliefs, memories, consciousness, interacts directly with a field of pure potential, a raw, undifferentiated canvas of possibility that underpins reality.
So the reality we experience in these states isn't just given to us by an external world. We're actively participating in its creation, shaping it with our deepest internal truths. This sounds like a direct route to gnosis, a deeply personal and profound knowing.
Exactly. The experienced reality is a profound co-creation, uniquely shaped by the observer's deepest beliefs, memories, and archetypal structures. This elegantly explains why mystical visions across vastly different cultures often share consistent underlying structures, like Ezekiel's eyed wheels versus Karen McKenna's jeweled, self-dribbling basketballs, even though the specific content and cultural interpretations vary widely. The profound feelings of unconditional love and unity often reported in these states are seen as the subjective experience of individual consciousness resonating directly with this underlying universal field. Biochemically mediated, sure, by neurotransmitters like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. But the experience itself points to something deeper. This is a direct pathway to gnosis, moving beyond the self-deception of a singular objective reality and engaging with our shadow side, our deep beliefs, our archetypes, as a source of creative power. This naturally leads us to Terence McKenna, the psychedelic vector, and the primacy of the word for gnosis. McKenna, as our sources highlight, dedicated his work to emphasizing that altered states fundamentally question what is real. They reveal the contingency and plasticity of our perception of reality, making us realize how much of what we call real is constructed. This is precisely where the self-deception of our ordinary filtered reality is momentarily suspended, opening us to direct gnosis.
He also talked about something he called the logos, or translinguistic matter. What was that about? And how does it relate to finding gnosis?
McKenna proposed an underlying generative principle of reality itself, a kind of cosmic blueprint or informational matrix, which he sometimes called the logos, meaning the word, in its deepest sense. He saw it as a vibrational or informational matrix from which both consciousness and the phenomenal world we perceive arise. Language, or the word, in his view, isn't just a communication tool. It actively participates in the constitution of reality at this foundational level. Altered states, McKenna theorized, might provide direct pre-linguistic access to this deeper layer of reality, bypassing the limitations of ordinary language and the conceptual self-deception of our conventional senses. He even theorized that psilocybin, the active compound in magic mushrooms, acted as an exogenous catalyst in human evolution, profoundly increasing visual acuity, stimulating language centers, enhancing symbolic processing, thereby promoting consciousness expansion and a deeper, more immediate form of gnosis. The epistemological framework proposes a radical epistemological shift, fundamentally challenging how we define knowledge itself. It argues that these subjective first-person states may represent a valid and valuable channel for acquiring data about the fundamental nature of reality. This is a revolutionary stance, suggesting that first-person experiences are not just anecdotes, but crucial, observable data for scientific inquiry, challenging the traditional view that only objective third-person data is valid. McKenna's vivid account of the mushroom saying, "because you have never believed anybody," perfectly encapsulates this, highlighting the profound value of the open-minded skeptic witness in this pursuit of gnosis, as they are less prone to the self-deception of prepackaged philosophies and more open to direct experience.
So, what does this all mean for us then? How do these profound subjective journeys, the idea of consciousness shaping reality, the potential for gnosis, how do they connect to the universe at its most fundamental physical level? We've explored the inner space, now let's zoom out to the cosmos itself.
This raises an incredibly important question, yeah. Connecting the micro to the macro. Our sources present a truly radical new cosmology where information is primary and observation is never truly passive. It's an elegantly integrated picture that challenges some of our most basic assumptions about the nature of existence and how our subjective experience is intertwined with it. Let's delve even deeper into PSUMO, the full psychedelic superfluid universal morphonic oceanic wave theory. At its heart is a revolutionary concept, the primacy of information. PSUMO posits a foundational shift in our understanding of the universe. The most fundamental constituent of reality is not matter or energy, but information itself.
This sounds like John Archibald Wheeler's famous it from bit idea, right? Where everything physical somehow derives from fundamental bits of information.
Exactly. Wheeler's aphorism, it from bit, suggested that every physical element, every particle, every interaction derives its existence and properties from binary bits of information. And other physicists, like Paul Davies, have further argued that information is actually a more fundamental postulate than either matter or energy. Hume takes this concept and builds a physical model upon it, describing the universe not as empty space dotted with particles, but as a self-organizing informational superfluid. And what's astonishing is that this superfluid is identified as a tangible physical substance, dark matter. This quantum superfluid, existing everywhere and with zero viscosity, is hypothesized to act as a single, coherent entity, the underlying fabric of everything. This superfluid also has a crucial morphic component, patterns, habits, and a cosmic memory. Hume achieves a remarkable synthesis here, bringing together Rupert Sheldrake's concept of morphic resonance with Alan Turing's work on morphogenesis. Sheldrake proposed that self-organizing systems, from crystals to living organisms, inherit memory from similar past systems via non-local morphic fields, invisible blueprints, or what he called cosmic habits that guide form and behavior. Turing, on the other hand, through mathematical models, showed how complex patterns, like those on a leopard skin or in a seashell, can arise spontaneously from simple chemical interactions.
So how does PSUMOT connect these two seemingly disparate ideas? It sounds like it's building a bridge between a kind of universal memory and the physical processes that create form.
That's precisely it. Hume identifies the superfluids phonons. These are collective excitations, like sound waves propagating through a quantum liquid, as the physical morphogens in Turing's system. Essentially, these vibrations within the superfluid are the carriers of information. The habits of nature, which Sheldrake spoke of, are encoded as stable resonant standing wave patterns within this superfluid, acting as these morphic fields. This elegant model makes phenomena often dismissed by mainstream science, such as telepathy, the inexplicable sense of being stared at, even collective memory, plausible, even expected consequences of interacting morphic fields within this shared superfluid medium. For example, the well-documented phenomenon of rats learning tricks faster if other rats have already learned them somewhere else in the world. That becomes an expected outcome. The learned pattern isn't just in their brains. It echoes into this cosmic memory field, overcoming individual self-deception and leading maybe to a collective gnosis. Interestingly, PSUMO also offers a unique perspective on cybernetic holism and societal control. It models the cosmos not as a random collection of parts, but as a viable, self-organizing system, drawing on the principles of Norbert Wiener's cybernetics and Stafford Beer's viable system model, which study how systems maintain stability and adapt. In this view, physical constants, things like the speed of light or the gravitational constant, are not arbitrary fixed values. They're seen as emergent, dynamically maintained equilibrium points, the homeostatic set points of the universe's vast regulatory feedback network.
So the entire universe isn't just static, it's constantly regulating itself, maintaining a delicate balance through feedback loops, almost like a giant living organism.
Indeed. And Pewitt doesn't stop at the cosmic scale. It chillingly connects these same cybernetic principles to modern societal control. It posits that an unstable information environment, like the one we experience daily through social media, combined with amplified R-selected information, that fast, emotional, reactive content we discussed earlier, is deliberately designed to keep people in cognitive chaos. This prevents deep thought and fosters societal self-deception. The rise of artificial intelligence in this framework is viewed as a new powerful observer that can refine this exploitation to an unprecedented degree. This could make divisions between the reactive R majority, those easily swayed and controlled, and a strategic K minority, those who understand and leverage these deeper dynamics, even more rigid. With AI becoming the new architect of reality, observing collective behavior and making the system ever more efficient at managing humans. Now let's bring a discussion back to Earth, specifically to language and the observer effect in physics, our participatory reality. The core proposition here is truly profound. Reality is fundamentally contingent upon collective agreement, the structures of language, and the act of observation. This statement suggests our reality is far from a neutral, objective canvas.
So the way we talk about things, the words we use, and what we collectively agree they are that actually helps create and maintain our shared reality. That means our language is a fundamental tool for constructing, or maybe deconstructing, our self-deceptions.
Yes, that's precisely it. Shared language and definitions aren't just descriptive. They actively establish the parameters of our shared reality, making it amenable to collective understanding and interaction. Thinking of the value of money, it's purely a collective agreement, or the simple floor lava scenario. These are social realities stabilized by collective agreement, showing how language and shared belief collapse ambiguity into a stable, functional perception. It's an everyday example of how language participates in reality's constitution. However, it's absolutely crucial to understand the nuance of the observer effect in physics. This is often misunderstood. The observer effect in physics refers to the physical disturbance of a system by the act of measurement interaction. It's not about human consciousness magically collapsing a wave function by simply looking at it, as some popular interpretations suggest. Rather, it's about the unavoidable physical interaction, the exchange of energy or information between a measuring apparatus and the quantum system itself. A classic example is the double slit experiment, where simply detecting which slit a particle goes through fundamentally changes its behavior from wave-like to particle-like.
But then what role does the word or language or our shadow side of unexamined assumptions, what role does that truly play in physics if it's not about conscious collapse?
Well, while language doesn't magically create particles, our conceptual frameworks and definitions, the very words we use, whether for a quark or an electron, they fundamentally guide how we design experiments and what we choose to measure. Our language structures the questions we ask the universe. This means there's an intricate link. Our definition shapes the question we ask the universe through measurement, and the measurement interaction itself perturbs the system, influencing the answer we receive. At the quantum level, this interaction is inherently participatory and state-altering. Moving away from the classical ideal of objective, detached observation, we are not passive observers but active participants. And our language, our deepest assumptions, our shadow side, if you will, and our conscious choices are all part of this dance. It highlights a profound self-deception in assuming a purely objective reality. This participatory nature also applies to how we learn and evolve our understanding. Anomalies as drivers of evolution. Unexplained phenomena, those things that consistently defy our current understanding. They're consistently described by our sources, not as flaws in reality, but as powerful catalysts for change and evolution.
So those unexpected results, those things that break our neat scientific models, are actually the most important data points, challenging our self-deception and opening us to new insights to potential gnosis.
Absolutely. From a cybernetic view, they act as error signals, forcing model adaptation. They tell our systems, whether biological or theoretical, that they need to adjust. Phenomenologically, they resist categorization within the established word, meaning they don't fit into our existing linguistic or conceptual frameworks. They necessitate shifts in consciousness or new linguistic frameworks to understand them, pushing us past our cognitive self-deception. In physics, they signal the breakdown of existing theories and drive theoretical revolutions. This dynamic interplay underscores the provisional and evolving nature of our understanding, always urging us to look beyond what we think we know, to explore the shadow side of our scientific models. Finally, let's touch upon a truly fundamental cosmic question. Why does light exist? The cosmic mediator of symmetry. Our sources offer a remarkably elegant explanation. Light exists because nature has two deeply conflicting rules. Rule number one, a universal speed limit. Nothing in the universe can travel faster than about 300,000 kilometers per second. And rule number two, nature has a deep fundamental love for symmetries, meaning it wants physical laws to look the same, no matter how you observe them or where you are in the universe.
So light actually resolves this inherent tension between those two fundamental rules. It's the universe's elegant workaround.
It is truly ingenious. Electromagnetism, and thus light, is the third person that mediates this tension. When a symmetry, like the consistent behavior of quantum mechanical waves of particles, needs to be maintained across a vast expanse of the universe, but cannot happen instantaneously due to the universal speed limit, special particles, called gauge bosons, must travel to carry that information and uphold the symmetry. Photons, the very particles of light, are one of these special gauge bosons. They are, in essence, nature's way of being symmetric and making sure that the symmetry gets transported to all of the universe without ever breaking the speed limit.